If you know your enemy and know yourself, you can fight 100 battles without disaster. These famous words were penned by Miyamoto Musashi, one of the most legendary samurai swordsmen in Japanese history. In his lifetime, Musashi fought and won 60 duels before his retirement. Shortly before his death, he retreated to a mountain cave to write the Book of Five Rings, a timeless classic on the Japanese way of the sword. The Book of Five Rings is a study of conflict that offers valuable insights into the art of combat and strategic thinking. Divided into 5 chapters, each covering a different aspect of combat: the ground, water, fire, wind, and void, Musashi's teachings go far beyond the martial arts. Over the centuries, his wisdom has been applied to everything from business to politics to sports. In fact, the Book of Five Rings has been read by philosophers, politicians, business leaders, and martial artists alike. Its insights into the mindset required to achieve victory in any form of conflict, whether literal or figurative, make this book a must-read for anyone interested in the art of combat and strategic thinking. In his youth, Miyamoto Musashi was a wandering swordsman, seeking to perfect his skills in the martial arts. Legend has it that when he was just 20 years old, he was traveling alone when he was attacked by a group of bandits. Musashi fought back using only a wooden sword and was able to defeat the bandits despite being outnumbered. This incident is said to have been the catalyst for his lifelong pursuit of mastery in the martial arts. Musashi went on to become one of the greatest swordsmen and thinkers in Japanese history, renowned for his dueling prowess and his teachings on strategy and conflict. His book, The Book of Five Rings, is a timeless classic on the Japanese way of the sword, offering invaluable insights into the mindset required to achieve victory in any form of conflict. As Musashi once said, "The ultimate aim of martial arts is not having to use them." By studying Musashi's teachings, we can gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and our opponents, and learn to approach conflict with a strategic and disciplined mindset. Join us for a deeper exploration of the Book of Five Rings, and discover the wisdom of one of the greatest warriors and thinkers of all time. Musashi's teachings offer invaluable lessons on understanding oneself and one's opponent, adapting to changing circumstances, and using strategy to gain the advantage. Whether you're a CEO seeking to improve your business strategy, an athlete looking to gain a competitive edge, or a martial artist seeking to develop your skills, the Book of Five Rings offers timeless wisdom that can be applied to all aspects of life. So join and subscribe us as we dive deeper into this classic text. We'll explore key concepts, offer insights and analysis, and help you apply Musashi's teachings to your own life. By doing so, you can improve your strategic thinking, gain a deeper understanding of conflict, and learn from one of the greatest warriors and thinkers in history. On October 10, 1643, well after midnight, Miyamoto Musashi began composing the 5 scrolls that would immortalize his name not only in Japan, but well beyond his own place and time. It was also late in another way. Musashi, at 60, felt that his life was coming to an end. His strength was diminishing, and he realized time was running out. When he left the lively castle town where he'd lived that fall, the leaves were already golden and red. He climbed a forested mountainside to the cave where he intended to spend his final days. It was a sacred site dedicated to Kannon, the merciful deity in Japanese Buddhism who conducts the souls of the deceased into paradise. Musashi concentrated on his life and documented his ideas in the cave for 2 years. His final work was a paper that distilled his insights into the nature of conflict and strategy. But before we get to that manuscript, let's take a step back. To grasp Musashi's thoughts, we must first understand the time and location in which he lived. Musashi was a Japanese samurai. The term is derived from the Japanese verb saburao, which means serve as an attendant. Samurais were once the servants of Japan's noble monarchs. They patrolled their subjects and defended their lord's properties. However, As time passed, the samurai class became increasingly ambitious. By the 12th century, Japan's nominal ruler, the emperor, was little more than a ceremonial figurehead. Military dictators known as shoguns, recruited from the samurai class, wielded real power. Power struggles, rivalries, and civil warfare characterized the centuries that followed. During this time, the warrior mindset of the samurais was forged. Tokugawa Ieyasu was the most powerful warlord in the early 17th century. In 1603, Ieyasu formed a new centralized state with Edo, today's Tokyo, as its capital. He accomplished something no other shogun had done. He disarmed his opponents. Potential usurpers were obliged to reduce their warrior contingents, resulting in a huge number of unemployed samurai. Their culture and training had prepared them for a life of battle and bloodshed. Now they faced an uncertain future in a nation that was discovering the virtues of peace. Some samurais went on to become priests or doctors. Others went to crime, which was one of the period's major societal issues. A third group was known as ronin, or wanderers. These masterless men practiced ancient combat arts, followed ancient standards of honor and discipline, and traveled from town to town looking for paying students and sparring partners. Miyamoto Musashi, born in 1584, was one of these roaming samurais. He taught martial arts while also practicing his genuine calling, swordsmanship. Many of the biographical data we know about Musashi came from his students. We know he never married, had a family, or fathered children because of them. They further claim that he never combed his hair or bathed as a preventative measure against being caught off guard without a weapon. These tales also provide insight into his personality. One pupil, for example, remembers bringing a bunch of bamboo poles to the 50-year-old Musashi. He wondered how one might distinguish which ones were ideal for flagpoles. Musashi answered, "It's a simple problem." He took one pole at a time and smashed it against the ground, discarding the shattered ones and retained the others, an unquestionable method, as the student observed. As we'll see, Musashi's directness and practicality was one of his defining characteristics. Musashi was unbeatable as a swordsman. He fought 60 duels, winning all of them, between the ages of 13 and 30, when he had his first combat with another samurai. Duels were an important aspect of samurai culture because they allowed swordsmen to improve their skills and demonstrate mastery. They were usually fought with wooden training swords known as bakken and concluded when the victorious samurai drew first blood. However, when honor or political power were at stake, duels were fought to the death. Musashi normally used a katana, the curved, single-edged steel blade worn by all samurai, but he could also deliver lethal wounds with the bakken. Musashi, in his opinion, possessed no exceptional skill as a swordsman. He wasn't particularly quick or agile. What had won him triumph time and again, he claimed, was his ability to focus on what was necessary while dismissing everything else. That was what he sought to convey to the Book of Five Rings readers. Among the roaming swordsmen, there were rival schools. Each claimed to be the only way. It was said that the founders of these schools were enlightened by gods or demons who revealed secret positions and fighting tactics. These claims were not disputed. Rather, the adherents of these schools settled their differences by duels. Despite their differences, these schools shared a worldview. They took their ideology from the vast reservoir of warrior culture. A warrior's purpose, according to this frame of thinking, was to serve his master, the lord who paid the samurai and maintained his family. This lord was the leader of the clan, the social unit that gave the warrior his identity. To die while fighting for the clan was the highest good. It was how a samurai defined himself. Musashi was not convinced. For him, this was a fading philosophy that had obscured the warrior's actual purpose. Death, he replied, comes to everyone at some point. A farmer, artisan, or maid can face it with the same zeal as a soldier. But if death does not distinguish the warrior from other strata in society, what does? Musashi's response was typically pragmatic. The warrior distinguishes himself by defeating his opponents. He triumphs. What other reason would a lord give a guy a sword and a stipend? On the battlefield, honorable deaths do not result in victory. Musashi taught his disciples that their goal should always be to triumph rather than to perish with weapons worn uselessly at their side. Every function in life, according to Musashi, has its own specific purpose or manner. The doctor's method is to cure the sick. The carpenter's method is to organize materials so that they can be used by humans. The Buddhist path seeks to assist people in discovering the nature of reality. The warrior's way is to outperform others in all he does. In other words, defeating opponents is one manifestation of an attitude and purpose that influences his behavior in all aspects of life. He is always looking to win. Many schools of swordsmanship had forgotten the link between quality and victory, Musashi reasoned. They taught pointless, ostentatious practices that amounted to teaching kids how to die with gorgeous form. For Musashi, wielding a sword without knowing how to use it to chop down an enemy was a type of useless theater. He preferred the basic blossom that matures into a fruit to the lovely flower that withers on the branch. In Japanese Buddhist belief, water is one of the 5 components that comprise the universe. Unsurprisingly, it depicts all things that are fluid, flowing, and formless. Water is always water, yet it can take on several forms. It takes the shape of the container into which it is poured. It's shallow and wide in a bowl. It's tall and slender in a vase. It may be a single drop of rain, or an entire ocean. Water, in summary, is receptive rather than preoccupied with obtaining a specific state. The true warrior, Musashi taught, moves like water. He reacts to what he sees in front of him. He adjusts. Musashi hated showy tactics because they came in the way of response. The swordsman who is preoccupied with his own footwork, or the execution of certain sequences of cuts and thrusts, loses sight of his opponent. It's almost as though he's reading from a script. However, a battle is not a play. It's spontaneous and energetic. The swordsman must keep an eye on his opponent's moves and reply appropriately. He must be adaptable. How can the warrior get such agility? Musashi's response is that he approaches conflicts with the same mindset as he approaches everything else in his life. This concept is based on Zen Buddhism, which teaches that the ordinary mind is the genuine path. Let's dissect that. Outstanding or exceptional states of consciousness, according to Zen Buddhism, are unnatural, and the unnatural is unreal. These states run counter to human mind. They necessitate an unsustainable tautness of thought, in Musashi's words. They are intensely focused moments that are rarely sustained for long. Military strategists throughout history have recognized that soldiers typically rely on their training rather than achieving remarkable accomplishments. Under duress, individuals revert to what is usual and daily, the practices that have become instinctive through regular rehearsal. The swordsman, like any other everyday action, must practice until his movements become as natural as walking or sleeping. He'll be able to use these movements without much thought after they've become second nature. His mind will be attentive to his situation and his body will follow effortlessly. A duel was more than just a physical clash of bodies and swords. It was also a psychological battle between thoughts. Battles, according to Musashi, may be won or lost on this latter terrain. That was something he was well versed in. Musashi was 28 years old when his biggest competitor, Sasaki Kojiro, a swordsman noted for his use of a particularly long blade, challenged him to a duel. Sasaki was unrivaled in terms of technical prowess. Musashi was undoubtedly the more gifted swordsman. However, Sasaki's technical prowess camouflaged flaws. The duel was arranged for April 13, 1612, early in the morning. The site was chosen as a small island near the castle town of Kokura, today's Kitakyushu. Sasaki and his entourage arrived on time. Musashi, on the other hand, slept late. When he awoke, the sun was high in the sky and it was already scorching. Sasaki, who'd been nearly boiled alive in his heavy ceremonial garb, was incandescent by the time Musashi's boat arrived on the horizon. When Musashi eventually arrived, his mood deteriorated even further. Instead of a steel sword, he'd carved an oar into a crude wooden bakken that was much longer than Sasaki's own weapon. Sasaki unsheathed his sword and hurled his scabbard into the waters, his blood boiling and nerves frayed. Musashi, who had stayed mute up to this point, declared that his opponent had already lost. Only a man who planned to die needed his scabbard. He was correct. Both warriors swung their swords, but it was Musashi's wooden sword that made contact. Musashi killed Sasaki with a second punch to the ribs after he slumped to the floor dazed. Emotions are governed by the third element of which everything is made, fire. Musashi moved to psychology, and its significance in fighting with the third scroll, the fire scroll. He wrote that many things can irritate us. For example, we may get a sense of danger or that something is beyond our ability. The unexpected can also be frightening. Musashi suggested researching the sources of agitation in depth since they can assist you throw your opponent off balance. He must have been thinking about his fight with Sasaki as he composed these remarks. The technically superior swordsman had been vanquished because he had allowed Musashi inside his mind. Sasaki's sense of dignity had been purposefully violated, and his rage had impaired his judgment. The carved wooden sword had also thrown him as Musashi had predicted. Showing up to combat with such a rudimentary weapon irritated Sasaki as well. Meanwhile, its length damaged his confidence. He'd become accustomed to fighting with the lengthier weapon. Before the bout ever begun, Sasaki had been psychologically defeated. Victory, as Musashi phrased it, is the result of creating obstacles for your opponent. Wage an effective psychological war against him, and he will defeat himself. As we come to the end of our discussion on the Book of Five Rings, we're reminded of the profound impact Miyamoto Musashi's teachings have had on the world of combat and strategic thinking. His insights into the importance of psychological warfare, understanding oneself and one's opponent, and adapting to changing circumstances remain as relevant today as they were in 17th century Japan. In closing, we invite you to consider how you can apply Musashi's teachings to your own life. Whether you're facing a business rival, a sporting opponent, or simply navigating the challenges of daily life, the lessons of the Book of Five Rings can help you develop a strategic mindset and gain the advantage over your opponents. We hope you found this discussion informative and thought-provoking. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more insights and analysis on the great works of literature and philosophy. Thank you for watching.